Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, a question about how I do things, you want to tell me how you do things, you have some constructive criticism, or you want to suggest a video. Those things are all great to get, and I love to hear them. So I have this little container full of 5x7 small, very pretty turquoise cabs, and I haven't done much with them, and I thought I'd make a little pretty pendant today out of one of them. So it's going to have kind of a triangle motif, and I think it'll be pretty. We'll see. But we'll give it a try either way. Before we do, though, I would like to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I have a brand new one. Dana S., thank you for signing up. I really appreciate your support, as well as appreciating the support of all of my pre-existing patrons who have been around for a while. So thank you for that. You've created a wonderful environment over there, and I really like interacting with you guys. You're a great group of people with a lot of talent who are super kind, so thank you for that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 19,300, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I do appreciate the kind comments, and it's nice to know when you tell me that you're getting something good out of the video. So I appreciate that. That makes me feel good that I'm doing some good for you. And I also do appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That helps with the cost of materials that have gotten kind of outrageous lately. So thank you for that, and let's get started on this project. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. This one has a convenient conversion chart on the back. It's fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters. I've started using the metric system almost exclusively, and I wasn't brought up using that, so it's convenient for me when I'm not sure how big something is going to be comparatively. So they also have this nice kind of grid pattern in the background that allows me to draw things up kind of nicely, and makes a place for me where I can keep track of the projects that I've made in the past in case I want to revisit them. Some of the other ones have different charts on the back. There's one with American wire gauge to millimeters and inches. That's handy. I use that periodically as well. Okay, so let me show you. I got these little stones. I picked one out that I thought was extra pretty. It's got a pretty dark matrix on it and kind of a sky blue color. So I was trying some different designs in my head, and I think I'm going to go with something kind of simple and geometric, which, big surprise if you know me. So I think I'll do that. I'll make a bezel for it. I'm going to use some 16 gauge square wire that I had left over from maybe yesterday's project or the project before, I'm not sure which, and make a series of triangles that kind of mirror that, getting smaller as they go up. And then the bail, I made a little bail like this in advance, so we had one pre-made. And if you're interested in learning how to make that sort of bail, I have a video about that. I'll put a link up there for you. I decided to make it in advance to save a little time, but I'm going to use 28 gauge bezel. It's a pretty small stone, and I don't need real thick bezel for it probably. That's 0.33 millimeters. And I normally use 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip, but I'm probably going to cut it a little bit shorter because I'm definitely not going to need that height for this one. So the back of the bezel will be 26 gauge sheet, which is 0.41 millimeters. So let's see, these little rings. Oh, I'm going to put a little silver ball that I make out of some scrap and dangle it from the bottom as well to give it just a little bit of movement. I think it'll be pretty, but we'll see. Worst case scenario, it's not. But we'll give it a try and find out. So let's make a bezel for that stone. And like I said, I think I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter first. So I'm not going to measure or anything, though. What fun would that be? Actually, I do a lot of measuring anymore these days. This will just save me some filing. just cut it down a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and shape it for a stone. Make a little mark there. Usually add a little scotch extra to make sure I have plenty for when I file it off a little bit. If you're new to my channel, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, which looks like that. And I use a liquid flux that I dribble on in a dropper bottle. My torch is a Smith Silversmith, which is their acetylene air model. So it draws in atmospheric air through there to mix with the acetylene gas. And it burns really great. It's a good torch for silver. And I use a #1 tip. And that's the list of the most common questions that I get from people on, on the channel. So, but if you have other questions, feel free to ask, because I do answer my comments. I actually spend a lot of time answering comments. I wonder what I'll do if I ever get up to like 50,000 subscribers. That's going to take, it's going to be a full-time job. But I'd like to find out. So tell your friends. Whenever you're doing a bezel, you want to make sure it's kind of pushing towards itself. So when it relaxes under the heat, as it usually does, it'll still remain touching the other side, and then you won't have a weird and not very effective solder joint. So let's flux that a little bit. Find my tweezers. Okay. I'm going to reshape this a little bit. That's just about right. So not too tight, but also not a lot of excess space. So let's put a bottom on that. I think I had a little piece of 26 floating around here. We can get it right off that end there, I think. So we'll just cut it right along there. I have plenty of solder on the pad I can throw in here. So let's flux it. A little crack in the end of my finger here that keeps breaking open, so I'm going to put that on while I do this stuff. Let's just trim off the excess sheet here. Got that pretty much cleaned up. So I have some 14 gauge or some 16 gauge left over here. I thought about doing this one, but I'm not sure. I think if I'm going to do tentacle-y looking thing, I'm going to do actual tentacles. Like a new octopus or something. And this one looked too much like a kite, so I wasn't feeling the kite today. Okay, so I'm going to file the end of this. And I'm going to make this first piece right here. And so I'm going to find the center after I file it, and then we'll cut a notch into it with the corner of my file. So it's got a diagonal cut going into it, and that will allow us to bend it nicely. I think with the exception of the bezel material, I'll be using all scrap stuff just laying around on my table to make this one. That's always fun when you can take a pendant or something and make it out of just leftover pieces of stuff and then sell it for $100 or something, and that always feels very thrifty to me. But it's good to use that up. That actually ended up being about 2 centimeters long, so here's the center point, roughly. You can brace this against something if you need to. So I'm going to bend this now right there. Let's do that just a little bit steeper. Okay, that looks nice. So I think let's solder that on there. The hardest part is going to be getting it in there so that it lines up nicely with that point. That's my downfall sometimes. Getting things lined up straight. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to do something called pick soldering, and that's where I pick up a little bit of solder, not on that end, on this end of the pick, after I flux it, and just touch it where it goes when the temperature reaches the right point, which in the case of hard silver solder is 1450 degrees Fahrenheit. I keep meaning to look up the Celsius temp for that. I'm sure somebody could leave it in the comments, since I keep forgetting to do that. Okay, I'm also going to solder that spot where I filed the notch so that it becomes a permanent bend like that. Of course, the bezel moved a little when I did that. And it never fails. Okay. I'm going to solder it to it first so I don't bump it accidentally when I'm doing this and misalign it again. I have to get both pieces up to the soldering temperature. I jumped the gun a little bit on that one. Let's turn around and look at it here. That actually looks pretty good. So let's cool that off. Alright, so there's another piece of that stuff. So let's do that. I'm just going to do the same thing I did on that other one. I might do a little bit wider bend because I need to bring these ones a steeper angle, I think, a little bit than this angle was. Maybe not much, just a little. That looks about right. I'm going to use my rotary tool to kind of carve that into more of a curve. If you wanted to, you could use a round nose file like that, or excuse me, a half round file. All right, now we need a little tiny one. That's going to be the loop for the bail to go through. That's pretty good. Should we solder that on next? We could go ahead and make more components, or we could just do it now. Let's just do it now. Why not? Alright, now we need to make an even smaller one. Find this last bit of stuff here. It's got to be big enough for the tip of this to go through, though. So, I like that. That's nice. Get this filed a little bit. That's pretty good. Let's do that. If you don't know how to fix solder yet, you could just set little pieces of solder on there. That's no biggie. No biggie. Alright, let's find some 20 gauge wire. We need to make a couple of rings. Not very big, probably. Okay, we need to make a little silver ball. Find a little scrap. Cut a little bit off of there. Make a couple of different size balls and then we can decide. How about 3? real trick when you're melting silver balls on a nice flat charcoal block like this is not having a molten metal ball roll onto your lap. So you really want to roll sometimes. But then you got to find out how fast you can move. Let's see. Stop that. Alright, so I think we can compare these, see which one we like best for this thing. I'm going to solder this on the bottom right there. And then we'll solder another ring onto a ball, and that'll be about right there. The question is, what size ball should we use? I'm really kind of leaning towards the bigger one, honestly. If you're going to put a ball on there, you might as well put a good sized ball. Okay, so let's do that. I think I want this to be soldered onto the side of it. I'm going to poke it down into my magnesia block so that I can mount the ring vertically that way. And I think what I'll do is I'll probably sweat a little bit of solder onto the ball and put some solder in the join on the ring. Apparently I'm not talking very well today. So for this other one, I think I'm going to solder it on but leave it open so I can solder that other one on there at the end. So I think I'm going to put the bail on next, and then we'll add that little ball last. So I'm going to open this up a bit. These kind of bails, if you push them straight towards each other to close them, they're always going to spring back a little bit. and you'll have a gap there, and solder doesn't like to fill in a gap. So after I put it on this here, I'm going to kind of, actually, instead of going like this, I'm going to kind of take each side and bend it like that a little bit so it forces those ends together. So now we just need to pick solder that. And the reason I'm able to do that with the same kind of solder is because I'm not going to heat the entire piece, I'm just going to heat the bail. And hopefully I can get that to flow without sticking anything else to places where it's not supposed to stick. But it's one of those, practicing how to control the heat. Over time you get better at that kind of stuff. I shouldn't say that right before I do it because I'll probably screw it up. Still moving. And I'm probably going to use a little easy paste solder on this one just because, I don't want to screw it up. So we'll just put a little bit here. So it's a slightly larger scale than I made, but I drew this kind of right exactly the same size as the stone, so the bezel being slightly bigger than the stone made everything a little bit bigger. But that's the basic idea I wanted to accomplish, and I like it. So let's let it pickle, and we'll set that stone, and after it's all polished up. So I got things polished up, and I'm going to go ahead and set this stone. I put a little bit of backing behind it. And I do this a little differently than some. I use the side of my chain nose pliers after I've polished it up as a bezel pusher, and then I'll use the outer rounded part as a burnisher. So we'll start by just kind of pushing that in. One of the things I like about doing geometric designs is because a lot of times the nature of the stones I'm using is sort of chaotic. This one, the matrix in it, is all kind of spider webby and cool. And I think I like the contrast between the geometry and the randomness. That kind of makes me happy for some reason. Alright, so let's burnish it a little bit. Well, that's kind of what I was shooting for. I'm curious, since I showed you the other two potential designs I was drawing up, do you think I made the right choice? And it's okay if you want to disagree with which choice I made. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Should I have done this one, or that one? Alright, well, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well, that was a kind of simple geometric turquoise pendant. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave, and I'd love it if you'd go over to my main channel page. I have about 450 plus videos now. I've been doing this for about 3 years at 3 per week, so I have plenty of videos over there to peruse. I think you're almost certain to find something else you'll find useful and enjoyable. After you do that, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And don't forget to check out the video description down below. There's a link to my ebook, which is a guide to 2024's videos, of which there were about 170. So it's a great tool to have a whole bunch of video projects right at your fingertips, and a great way to support my channel. There's also a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books. And finally, there's a link to my Patreon site if you want to check out that cool community over there. So thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.